clerk to call the roll.
Alderperson Stefanski.
Here.
Vitale.
Here.
Weigel.
Here.
Grisham. Here. Haas. Here. Keen. Here. Lysick.
Here.
Ranky. Rote.
Here.
9 present.
We have a quorum. Please rise if you are able and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led this evening by Alderman Stefanski. We will move on to item D in our agendas, public hearings. We have 3 this evening, and I will ask the clerk to read public hearing number 1.
Ordinance to create a pedestrian mall in the 1300 block of South 72nd Street.
Mr. Scher.
Thanks, Mayor. This first hearing item will hear the ordinance that's before you, which is the public hearing item, and as well as item 35 on the Public Works agenda. There's a related item, a resolution, item number 38, that I'll also just briefly summarize here within this presentation. So what's before us is the pedestrian mall ordinance to close a portion of 72nd Street just north of Greenfield Avenue. And there is the basis for this is within our state statutes. The cities can, by ordinance and via public hearing, can legally create a pedestrian mall which would close a street to vehicles, motor vehicles in this case, while maintaining it legally as a piece of right-of-way. So it's different from the vacation or discontinuance process where it becomes private property and taxable. In this case, the portion of right-of-way that we're talking about here, in this case 72nd, would remain public right-of-way and under city control. So the location is specifically north of Greenfield Avenue, about a 60 by 120 portion of land. Being on the grid in West Dallas, Greenfield Avenue being the major thoroughfare through the downtown West Dallas area, and there's a number of north-south side streets, as we all know. This part would be north of Greenfield Avenue. Alley access and sidewalk access along Greenfield Avenue, as well as alley access behind the storefronts, would remain open and accessible. It's just the portion between what is the future deco and the mixed-use building that would be closed to motor vehicle traffic. In terms of looking forward and envisioning for the downtown, downtown's no stranger to closing streets. It's done on a very limited basis now with certain events like a la carte and the car show as part of our downtown area. But also in taking a look at the amount of streets we have throughout the city, there's roughly about 25%, or actually a little over 20% of land within the city. Street right-of-way is considered street right-of-way, and while it's important to have access and certainly move around town, we also should be taking a look at reimaging, how we want to reimage the downtown and create destinations within our city. One way to do this is taking a look at an infrastructure, and being on a grid, are all streets necessary for vehicle traffic? Arguably not, but so we're looking at this as a way to sort of reposition our downtown and to sort of further the downtown as a destination area, a destination place to spend a little more time and money. And it can also be used by the bid as well as businesses within the downtown area. So the DECO has expressed an interest in this portion of street, and they were before the Common Council back in May. They received a conditional use for their event space, and then later in October we put out some social media blasts, door hangers throughout the neighborhood, and then in November we had scheduled a public hearing, a public informational meeting where we invited residents to City Hall here to sort of talk about the idea or the concept of closing a portion of 72nd Street. There was a Class 1 notice put out, and then in Plan Commission on earlier this month had recommended approval of the concept of the ordinance, and they had reviewed the basics of the resolution as well, and they had recommended approval. So tonight, what's before us is the ordinance public hearing, and then some consideration for that resolution, which creates the agreement between the DECO, in this case, and the city for the use of that portion of 72nd Street. This is just a view out of the deco window towards that part of 72nd Street down below. And then in terms of feedback, overall, we've received positive support. There has been some caution exercised by some within that feedback and by the bid. The bid is supportive of the deco. However, they're taking a little bit more of a wait-and-see approach, as indicated in their communication. I'm going to jump ahead now just for a quick summary of the resolution, which is also on the agenda. And this is a privilege agreement which could be approved by the council via resolution. The DECO proposes to use this portion of 72nd Street right-of-way between the months of May 1st and October 31st. In exchange, they'd be willing to pay for the improvements within that part of city right-of-way. This is just an artist or architect's rendering of what that could look like with patio chairs and tables. Certainly, within this first 6 months of time, you wouldn't create permanent closures of the street. This would be more of a temporary barriers to make it safe, to make sure a car doesn't accidentally turn down the street from the alley or from the street, Greenfield Avenue. Landscaping could certainly be added in the future. What could happen, though, within that initial 6-month term is to put out tables and chairs and create a place for people for music and other festivities, both associated not only with the DECO for some exclusive nights, but also for the bid and the city to use as well, should there be small-scale acoustic events or other city-sponsored events within this area. And just go quickly through the resolution with the agreement does go through these list of things in more detail. This is just a summary of those highlights. Again, the term being May 1st of 2023 through October 31st, a 6-month period. The improvements would be paid for by Walter Holtz of the DECO. It would be maintained by the DECO. Safety barriers would be installed. Mr. Holtz would need to apply for a licensed extension of premise to serve alcohol within the pedestrian mall area, and that could be reviewed under the authority of the License and Health Committee. And then the use of the pedestrian mall would require a special event permit, and then private events or somewhat exclusive events could be conducted by the DECO, and then the events would be on Fridays and Saturdays between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. Additionally, when the DECO is not using the area for a pedestrian mall, it could be used by the general public. For instance, someone coming over from another nearby restaurant, sitting down and eating a sandwich, or it could be used by the city for sponsored events or the Downtown Business Improvement District. And at any time, the Common Council could terminate the agreement and basically eliminate the pedestrian mall. And then there will be insurance that Mr. Holtz would take, would secure for this area. Like any privilege, it can be taken away, and with any privilege that the city authorizes, there's also a certificate and insurance requirement as part of that grant of privilege. So that would be obtained by the applicant. So in conclusion, the Plan Commission has recommended approval, and the 2 items on tonight's council agenda, one being the public hearing for the ordinance. And one thing to note is that should council want to proceed with the ordinance to create the pedestrian mall, when would you like to close the street? Do you want it effective immediately, or maybe something like next spring in April to close it? Just something to consider. And then secondly, the resolution, the more specific terms of the resolution are in item number 38 of tonight's agenda. One other item just to note, perhaps within the agreement, it's not covered within the agreement, would be on the west side of 72nd Street, within the proposed pedestrian mall, there's a sidewalk alongside the mixed-use building. There's a doctor's office on the ground floor and apartments above. One idea could be to keep this sidewalk open, so that, in other words, if there is an exclusive event going on a Friday or Saturday night by the Deco, that this sidewalk here that runs north-south along the west side of that area of the street could be kept open for public, for instance, to park behind the building and then walk out to Greenfield Avenue, just as an accessibility measure. Thank you. That concludes my pedestrian mall presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Scher. Are there any questions from the members of the Common Council on our first public hearing?
Mayor Devine?
Alderman Weigel?
So I'm just going to hit the highlights, and then I have a question and some comments. So the highlights are, this is 6 months only, and it starts in May and ends at Halloween. It's essentially for the private use only on Fridays and Saturdays. The rest of the time, and it ends at 10 p.m. And the rest of the time, it's essentially free and open to the public. We'll compare it to a park. Okay, so people could come there and hang out and have a sandwich. My question is on the cancellation of it. It's not like we need to give him 30 days. We just need to convene a meeting of the council, and the entire council has to vote on it?
Correct. It would require council's decision. You know, Public Works Committee could bring it up, or a member of DPW or engineer, any city employee, or any alder person could bring this before the council for action. Correct.
Okay, and then my comments. Some of the resistance to this is, well, it's going to be a public space, it's going to be problems. I've spoken to the owners and the operators at Kegel's and Station 6 both. Not only are they both highly supportive of this, because they have what would be the closest parallel spaces to this, you know, kind of a spot that's open to the pub, you know, you can walk in. Station 6 has that big service area, and Kegel's obviously has a discontinued street that they own now. Not only were both of them overwhelmingly supportive of this, but they also said that they had essentially zero problems with their spaces. You know, people wonder, well, 3 a.m., somebody's going to wander in there and do something. So I just wanted to convey that to the council because I like I said, I talked to them. So I appreciate Mr. Holtz and what he's doing and staff support for this and the idea that we're easing into this. This is not 100%. If it works, it works, and it can be renewed or changed in the future as we see fit, or maybe it doesn't work and it either ends at 6 months or even earlier if needed. So, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Weigel. Any other questions from the Common Council? Seeing none, are there any questions or comments on this public hearing from the members of the audience? Please come up to the microphone and podium. And if you push the button with the little person on it, it'll turn green and that will activate your microphone. And please give us your name and address for our official record.
Okay, my name is Dominic Amberselli. I happen to be the owner of the building at 7200 West Greenfield, or 1372 South 72nd Street. And one of my concerns that was passed on by one of my tenants, I do have a tenant whose direct access is right on 72nd Street. And their concern, it's Adore Healthcare, if I can speak on their behalf. Their concern is that if this is closed off, they have a lot of people, a lot of their clients that many of them are handicapped, whatever, and they would lose the ability to have direct access to their office space. And you know, that is a concern of mine too. Obviously, if they're not happy, I'm not happy, you know, in a sense. So again, it's the loss of that access. We have offices with entrances right on 72nd Street, and if that's closed off, obviously, it can be difficult for the people to enter their office space.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll touch base with you after the public hearings if you're still around and talk it through a bit. Thank you. Anybody else from the audience with questions, comments on public hearing number 1? Okay, seeing none, we will close public hearing number 1. And I will ask the clerk to read public hearing number 2.
Resolution for a conditional use permit for multifamily apartments, proposed 5+ unit dwelling to be located at 8530-56 West National Avenue.
Thank you. Mr. Scher?
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, this is a proposed multifamily apartment building on the site of the Clark Oil Building, known as Clark Oil Building to me at least, at 85th and National. This will be on the north side of National Avenue between 84th, and then the next major street west is 92nd Street. Some couple renderings on the right-hand side of the proposed look. It's roughly about 6 floors in height. The property is zone C2, which is neighborhood commercial. Conditional use is required for apartment buildings within this commercial zoning district. In terms of the proposed 247-unit apartment facility, the construction is slated to begin in 2023 in the spring or summer, and it's about a 16 to 18 month construction window. So it will be opening in 2025. This is the general location from the bird's eye view, and then with respect to context of what's around it, the intersection of 84th and National is in the lower right-hand side. The Union Pacific Railway runs east and west to the north of this project, and then the subject property here highlighted in yellow or gold. The Honey Creek Park is located immediately south across the street, underneath the water tower, as well as our Historical Society and Lug Schoolhouse property. And then to the west, as you look to the west down National Avenue, you can see some other developments, a lot of rooftops, as well as the Sunrise Apartments, which is somewhat comparable in height at 6 floors. And in terms of the planning context, the proposed development does hit a number of the marks in terms of our National Avenue corridor study, as well as our comprehensive plan in terms of redeveloping the area for some additional housing and additional activity along National Avenue. So the development, as seen here in the image, is 6 floors in height. The ground floor being a parking structure, and then there'll be 5 residential floors above that. There are 319 parking spaces, both within and outside of the building. And then also the unit mix, this is generally described or summarized here. There's different, more specific types of 1-bedroom units. And there's also some studios, but that gives you the initial flavor of what you can anticipate in terms of the unit mix, primarily being 1-bedroom units, and then 73 2-bedrooms, and then so on. This is a market rate development, and just another image from looking from National Avenue. This is a view of the lower level, or actually the ground floor level, with 189 parking stalls, and there's also, I guess, different amenities within this area, including, within that ground floor level, a fitness center, the lobby, office space, a pet spa, and a wash station within the parking structure. And then down below that, accessible from National Avenue, is a lower level of parking. And given the grade of the site, there's this ground floor level of parking, which is accessible here off of National Avenue into the garage here. And then further east, there's another access point to a lower level garage on the east side, which has 106 structured parking spaces. And then just in terms of the floor plan layout, the building is somewhat S-shaped, sideways S or 2, I guess, but you can kind of see how it curves, and the corridor spaces within are in the darker gold color. The rooms are in the lighter gold color. And then moving up from the second floor to floors 3 through 6, you have just sort of the similar layouts. The overall floor area, the unit sizes range in nature from about 450 square feet up to about 1,200, a little over 1,200 square feet. And the estimated value is roughly about $48 million, and that's considered a taxable value. The overall building, all floors, is about 140,000 square feet. It has a 10-foot setback from National Avenue. The main entrance points to the building are centrally located in the middle of this building here in blue, and then as discussed briefly before, with access points to a parking garage on the east end, and then to surface parking as well as additional ground floor parking from National Avenue at these 2 points here. The Union Pacific Railway is just to the north here. And then there will be a landscaping, plentiful landscaping around the site, a number of trees as well as lower growing shrubs and so on for a green softened look for the overall property. And then moving into the architectural plan, just a view, a rendered bird's eye view from looking east in National Avenue. And the overall height is going to be about 68 feet. And the site, in terms of context, I mean, it's similar in nature to the nearby Sunrise Apartments. We've got a water tower across the street, which is somewhere around 90 feet tall. So it's not out of place, at least from planning's perspective, along National Avenue corridor. The exterior materials will be quality materials, including masonry, modular brick, fiber cement panels. There will be accent panels as well, the gold panels that you see. A considerable amount of windows, and in terms of articulation, the building will feature balconies and does have, just given the floor plan views that I showed before, has a number of ins and outs. It's not just one big rectangle plopped on a site. So it will be architecturally interesting to look at, we believe, and will add a nice appearance to the street frontage. Just some side views. This view, by the way, on the top is what you would see from National Avenue. And then down below, these are side elevations. If you're traveling westbound on National Avenue, this is what you would see here. The side being National Avenue, and the east side, and then the west side. If you're heading east on National, this is what you would see. We talked a little bit about parking, but the ratio in terms of comparability to other projects, for instance, the Mandel project around our farmers market or Ogden, is about 1.3 parking stalls per unit, which is comparable to others that we've approved previously. And it will feature indoor bike parking stalls as well as some outdoor spaces, so it does meet the benchmark there in terms of our ordinance requirements. And then amenities will include a pool. There's actually 2, I guess, yard areas if you want to consider this, National Avenue being the bottom here. This being somewhat of a front yard area and then a backyard area, which would be insulated from traffic on National Avenue and just be more inward facing. But the front yard area would feature a pool on that deck, and then as well as some other areas for common area recreation. And the backyard area would feature grill stations, fire pits, outdoor games, a small dog run. So things that are marketable, things that people want when they're looking for a place to live. So the Plan Commission has recommended approval. We've received no objections to date. I know there have been some concerns about, I've heard some concerns about maybe parking or traffic. And there was a traffic study done, and our engineering department did not, submit any significant concern at all whatsoever. In fact, there was a prior proposal about a year ago where a traffic study was done as well, and this plan has adopted some of those measures that were encouraged at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the members of the council?
Mayor Devine.
That was a tie. We're giving Suzette.
Ladies first.
Alderperson Grisham.
Thank you. Steve, thank you for the presentation, and also reiterating the fact that Alderwoman Keene and I did ask for that traffic study, and I think we're in a good position with it. As much as I'm supportive of the project, and I still am, I just wanted to make more of a statement. As we're looking at these new developments, I wouldn't have been able to tell this development apart from Mandel's in a lot of ways. And I guess what I'm looking more for is that we keep in line and in mind of the history of the city as well, especially in this historic area of the city, that I wouldn't necessarily like to see all of these projects looking the same. And that's just one of the things that I have concern with, and that some of the constituents, when they are reaching out or at least having conversations, are saying, okay, we're moving away from the small town feeling going all, development, which of course I know otherwise, but I just wanted to at least mention that I think it looks way too familiar to the other projects that are going on, and I would just like to see a little bit more unique features to these properties. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Rote?
Thank you, Mayor. This would be for the owners group. I was at the Plan Commission meeting a month ago, and I asked about workforce housing. And I know it is marketplace, I see that. But then one of the gentlemen along the windows on the west wall said it's already built in, the workforce housing aspect. Can you explain that again? And whoever it was that told that to me, oh yeah, there's the guy. I was just joking, but go ahead, sir.
Good evening, I'm David Lyon with Three Leaf Partners. And yes, sir, we talked about the workforce housing as it relates to the incomes of the households that we could potentially serve. And the gentleman that joined me, my colleague John Peckin, added some detail to the conversation. But generally speaking, the current rent structure that we're proposing, about 25% of the apartment units, will be affordable to people earning 80% or less of area median income. So that's how we're defining, in this case, AMI. Now there's the opportunity for incomes to grow, for the rents to go up, but out of the gate, as structured, our rents will provide about 25% affordability. Does that answer your question, sir? Okay, sure.
Thank you. Any other questions from the members of the council? Okay, are there any questions or comments from the members of the audience? Okay, seeing none, we will close our second public hearing, and I will ask the clerk to read out public hearing 3.
Resolution to confirm and adopt the report of the city engineer containing the schedule of proposed special assessments for improvement of West National Avenue from South 62nd Street to South 65th Street.
Thank you. Mr. Hutter?
Hi, I'm Rob Hutter. I'm the interim city engineer here for the city of West Allis. And our public hearing tonight is on National Avenue from South 62nd Street to South 65th Street. This will be a complete reconstruction, new storm sewer, sanitary sewer, water main, and concrete road. The procedures for this public hearing, as outlined here, we go through this project scope, the assessment rates, get comments or questions, and then the public hearing will be closed and Public Works Committee will vote on it. The final decision is by the full Common Council. National Avenue in this area is in very rough shape. Just a few pictures, but there's severe pavement deterioration, and anyone in that area has seen the shape of the road. What's underneath the road? Well, we have water main right now that at the time of the project will be 114 years old, as well as our sanitary sewer will be 114 years old. Storm sewer is a little younger, 93 years old, but obviously those are have outlived their lifespan. We will be replacing the water main, the sanitary sewer, the storm sewer, and then replacing the laterals which go to the properties up to about the sidewalk area. So we get new materials for the laterals out of the street. And then we will also have new lighting installed. The cost of the project, these are obviously estimated costs, but the total cost is around $2.3 million, with the majority of it for the pavement and the signals. The way this is funded is we have federal funding for about 60% of the project. Because of this project, like others we've had, will be it'll be bid out and inspected by the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. We as a city will inspect our sanitary sewer and our water main but the DOT will be inspecting and running the majority of this project. As you can see with kind of these two slides, the federal funding is almost 1.4 million. Our special assessments come in at only 115,000, which is 5% of the estimated cost. The rest of the costs come from our utility funds and from our citywide property taxes. For special assessments, giving a very typical lot of 35 feet, our assessment rate is this year for a reconstruction is about $67 a foot. So the average lot would cost the property owner $2,343 or $2,300. In addition, if they have driveway replacement, it is another $8.36 per square foot. The bills would be mailed out in March of '24, and there can be a 5-year or a 10-year installment plan. With that plan, there is a 4% interest. That is just to cover the cost of the interest that the city has to pay. The city is not making money on charging interest to people. Special assessments, they have been in place for many, many years. Used to be assessing substantially more for a project, and the rate covers all property owners. I know property taxes are distributed a little bit differently, but for each property owner on this street, they will receive the same price per foot. Unless it is, of course, a business or a corporation or manufacturer, they pay a higher assessment rate. So special assessments, I guess, leave no one gets an exemption or a way out of them. The schedule, in fact, I believe today was the day the DOT received bids from contractors. This project will be awarded in February and starting sometime in spring of '23 with hoping to be finished sometime in September of '23. There will be a detour route. This is pretty hard to see, so I zoomed in a little bit. The detour will be 70th to Greenfield to 62nd Street. So the road will be closed right here, and our trucking route will be on these major streets. Obviously, there will be regular passenger cars can find different routes, and as we have experienced in the past, we kind of deal with those as the problems occur with people cutting through residential streets. I always tell everyone to sign up to our construction in progress report, which gives you a pretty good idea of what's happening on a weekly basis. And in conclusion, I'd be happy to field any questions on this project.
Thank you, Mr. Hutter. Are there any questions or comments from the
Mayor
council? Alderman Haas.
Thank you. And Rob, are there plans for bike lanes and bump outs on this or other traffic calming features?
Yeah, there will be bump outs at the different intersections, 64th, 63rd. We will have bump outs, and I believe there will be bike lanes striped in it as well.
Striped, what about green bike lanes like on other portions of?
I think they're just striping that, not doing the green. The green seems to have faded and chipped a little bit. So I think it's just the striping, but I can verify that.
Thank you. And then a second question, you mentioned replacing the lighting. There's currently ornamental lighting there. Is the new lighting going to be the same type of ornamental lighting, something different?
I think we will be using, the bid would be to be using the poles that are there right now, the way the project is bid. If there is money to replace those poles, it's a possibility. Otherwise, we'd be using the same poles that are there now.
Okay, same poles, but new lamps then?
Yes, yeah.
And then new wiring as well?
They'd have to redo the wiring with different lights, or different style of the LED.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, Alderman Vitale?
Yeah, Rob, tonight really, with my whole heart, I'd like to say to you, your presentation was very, very professional, really. I mean, you explained every details. There was no up and downs on anything what you addressed to us. I believe you did a hell of a good job for first time, really, I do.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments? Alderman Weigel?
Thank you, Mayor Devine. Rob, quick question. You mentioned on the special assessments, and this is one way we get properties that don't pay property taxes and contribute to the operation of the city normally. I'm just looking here at Epicos Churches on the corner there, but I'm assuming they're getting so they'll be paying a special assessment, but I'm assuming they're getting the alongside discount?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
because when we special assess houses that are buildings that are or properties on a corner, we don't charge them full price for both streets, because eventually Greenfield Avenue will be reconstructed sometime in the future, and Greenfield Avenue is a little bit shorter. So they're getting the alongside discount on the National Avenue project.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions from the Common Council? Seeing none, are there any comments or questions from the members of the audience? If you could come up to the microphone and give us your name and address, please.
Hi, good evening. My name is Marla Poitinger. I am the owner of Bars and Recreation, and I own 6325 West National. And we're going to be redeveloping the building for our new project there. And my question is just if there could be any coordination on the timing, because we're going to need to put in a sprinkler system for our building, and so we'll need to put the tie-in for our sprinkler riser under the street anyway. And so we were thinking if the street's going to be torn up, could we take that opportunity to do that hookup at the same time? And so I didn't know if there was ability to work with you guys on the timing of that.
Yes, there usually is out in the field working with our city inspector for the water main or the State Department of Transportation inspector.
Okay,
So yeah, just keeping the open lines of communication always helps.
okay, perfect.
Yeah, the last thing we want to do is rip up the road
Twice,
after.
yeah, exactly. Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the members of the audience? Okay, seeing none, we will close public hearing number 3. Thank you, everybody. And we will now go on to citizen participation. The council may receive information from members of the public during this 30-minute period. Each speaker must announce their name and address to the council, sign in, and limit their comments to no more than one statement of less than 5 minutes. We keep this section of our agenda to 30 minutes. Does anybody wish to address the council under citizen participation this evening? I do not see anybody, so we will close citizen participation and go on to item F. Our standing committees will be meeting during recess. The room numbers are listed on the top of page 2 of your agendas. Moving on to item G, the mayor's report. I don't really have a official report, but I just, because this is our last meeting of the year and last meeting before the holidays, I just want to take a minute to thank all of the city staff and employees in every department from top to bottom for everything that they have done over the course of 2022. A lot of times they are doing things that an average citizen or business owner doesn't even know gets done in the city until it's not there. And I also want to give a special nod to those that will be working on the holidays, being that the nights of Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, those that worked on Thanksgiving, those that get called in the middle of the night, those that are dealing and helping with everybody coming into City Hall, whether they're purchasing a permit or having a concern that they want to talk to one of us about. We are incredibly thankful for everything that they have done over the course of this year. They do a completely wonderful job, and the work that they do makes all of our jobs easier, and we cannot thank them enough. So I just want to say that, and I also want to just wish everybody a very happy holiday season. It does conclude the mayor's report. Do we have any reports from the alderpersons? Seeing none,
Mayor Devine.
Alderman Lysick.
I move for approval of the Common Council meeting minutes of November 15th, 2022.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? The ayes have it, the minutes are approved.
Mayor Devine,
Alderman Lysick.
unless there's any objections from a council member, I would refer you to item J, our consent agenda, and I would move for approval of the consent agenda as presented, along with the supplemental agenda item 31A to be included in that.
Second.
Thank you. If there is no call for separate action, we have a motion and a second. All right. Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderperson Stefanski.
Aye.
Vitale.
Aye.
Weigel.
Aye.
Grisham.
Aye.
Haas.
Aye.
Keen. Aye. Lysick.
Aye.
Ranky.
Aye.
Rote.
Aye.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries.
Mayor Devine,
Alderman Lysick.
I move that we stand in recess until conclusion of the committee meetings.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are in recess.
That's okay, Alder.
Forgiven.
We'll let it happen.
Forgiven, Road.
We'll forgive it this time.
You're a busy man.
Thank you for waiting. You really didn't have a choice. We will open Public Works meeting with item 35, ordinance 2022-0170, ordinance to create a pedestrian mall in the 1300 block of South 72nd Street.
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Who got that one?
We had enough already.
What's that?
I had one question, and I think it would have been answered already in one of the meetings I attended. As far as the use of the property outside of Deco and the city bid events, the owner of the property is not going to subcontract the space out to anyone else? That were,
Right.
as far as, events and other things, it has to be, it coincides with the event space.
That is correct. So the special event permits would be applied for by Walter Holtz in this case, and then for 2 nights a week, Fridays and Saturdays, for his events. And then if someone else is interested, right now, the way we're looking at it is that it wouldn't be, if members of the public wanted to use it, it could be used, Sunday through Thursday, but not as a special event. So if somebody wants to just I want to throw my son's birthday party out there, it's not designed to function that way. This is just functioning for the bid, the city, and Walter Holtz.
Are there exclusions in that stating that, okay, if a peddler wanted to come by and get, like what we had voted on earlier, a permit to sell, that would not be an area in which they could do so?
Be up to the council.
If with the ordinance that was just passed, that will be published if the mayor signs it later this week. If they have a special event permit, they have to be away by 100 feet.
Okay.
So it would be applicable to
Okay, that was
location
my question. Okay, that is it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Mr.
Item-
Chair, could I ask a question,
Yes,
please?
go.
Considering the people that would like to use that facility, that area, who, the costs incurred, who would get this money then?
Well, if we would get, if people are applying for a special event permit,
Right.
the city would get the money for the special event permit.
Okay,
But he could have an event where he's renting out to somebody where they would be there, but we would be getting money for them being on the right of way.
okay, the DECO wouldn't get any money for,
Yes, they would, because if a person rents the location,
for a
they
wedding.
might wanna be inside and outside.
Yes.
So they would pay for both of that.
Oh.
But he would also have to pay us to be on the street.
okay. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We did vote on it.
We did vote on it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
You're welcome.
Item 36, Resolution 2022-0816, resolution to confirm and adopt the report of the city engineer containing the schedule of proposed special assessments for improvement of West Nashville Avenue from South 62nd Street to South 65th
Move to
Street.
approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And again, more of the road project. Item 37, Resolution 2022-0822. Final
approve.
resolution.
Second.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to read it all again?
What's that?
I said you don't have to read it all
I
then.
know. I don't like hearing me either.
It's not bad.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And then we jump down to item 38, which is the grant of privilege for the DECO.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, and I will, because I had a question too. Can you hold your?
Yeah.
Okay, Steve, go ahead.
A couple points, with respect to the effective date of when you'd want to close the street. I don't know if that was discussed prior, sorry, I should have brought that up during 35, but when would you like the street closed? I mean, if you pass the ordinance and if you pass or approve the resolution,
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Go ahead.
what would the operator want?
speaking with Mr. Holtz, April 1st would be fine.
Okay, then why don't we appease that and shoot for April 1st?
Okay, and then, Steve, you had brought up out there in the chambers about the west sidewalk. Do you want to address that now?
I think that could be added as a condition within the agreement to.
Now or future?
As part of your motion, I mean, it's just something that we think would be a good attribute to allow public to walk on the
And again, that was
sidewalk.
during his events?
It could be during the
Anytime.
events, anytime. I mean, really anytime, whether it's during an exclusive event or just, the other days of the week, just to promote accessibility between the city parking lots and Greenfield Avenue. So that,
Okay.
people, whether you work in that building immediately west of 72nd Street or you're just someone coming to the downtown to visit, you have that walkability on the west side of the street.
Mr. Chair?
Alderman Stefanski?
I thought the whole thing was, no matter what, people still have access to the public sidewalk on both sides, even when there's a special event.
Well, I mean, the thing would be if there's a special event, you're gonna have, let's say, a wedding party or something outside,
You're blocking off his
and
building.
you're gonna be sort of walking through, as people are coming in and out of the deco, from that side door into the outdoor patio. That walkway would be open, but I think it'd be good maybe just to create something within the actual agreement itself, just to more or less indicate on the west side of 72nd Street where that west sidewalk is, that be, so in other words, somebody doesn't put a patio table right in the middle of that, in that part, and that way kind of creates a little bit more, like I say, a 4 to 5 foot wide path for public right of way.
So the sidewalk itself on the west side could just be open access
To be
to,
clear, yeah.
and not put any tables or anything on there.
While part of the pedestrian mall, it remains sort of a cross access, so
Yeah.
it's-
Mr. Chair, just a suggestion, Steve, and I'm sure development will look at that anyhow. They could easily landscape that as a divider too, from the sidewalk, and leave that open where it's still private for the event. So, yeah, I think that amendment should be added to it to specify that the sidewalk should be put in that agreement to be open.
Sorry for not bringing that up sooner.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just so I'm clear, the condition will be that the west side of South 76th Street,
72nd?
72nd Street will remain open, the sidewalk will remain open at all times
Yeah.
for the public. Okay.
And the opening date?
April 1st.
April 1st.
April
April
1st.
1st.
So, Mr. Chair, I would like to ask Steve, I mean, is the, Mr. Holtz to be responsible during the winter months to keep the sidewalk clear? I mean, or?
Well, I
how's
mean,
it
the
gonna
first
work?
part, right now, I mean, if, for 2023, he would be utilizing that pedestrian mall between May 1st and October 31st. If it snows sometime within that period, I mean, we've had snow on late October before, but he would be responsible for cleaning it up. After that time, I think it would be, if he's no longer using that, the agreement pretty much stops on October 31st, so I think it would be, just revert back to the city to clean that area, keep that area maintained.
I mean, he'd still have to clean the sidewalk next to his building.
Correct.
Well, correct, yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
You're just talking about the area that would be closed off to
Correct.
traffic.
Right.
Right. Mr. Chair, I would assume that any of the business owners would already maintain their sidewalks in that respect. So the pedestrian mall or walkway area, with the exception of the sidewalks, because each property owner would be responsible for snow removal anyhow, per ordinance. That was just a statement.
Sure. So, you want to redo your motion as amended?
I motion to approve as amended that Rebecca read off.
And that's the west sidewalk and the April 1st opening.
Correct.
Okay. It's been moved.
And there was a second.
Oh, and seconded. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, we are adjourned. We're not slamming.
All right. The floor is yours, Vince.
Anyway, the License and Health Committee meeting comes to order. All the members are present. So we begin with item 40, new Class D operator bartender application for Seth House second appearance. She's here. Seth,
Is Seth here?
I'll move for denial of the application.
Second. Is that based on record and
And
non-appearance?
records and everything, yes. Now we move on to item 41, new Class D operator bartender application for Cody Curtis, second appearance.
Is Corey here? Move to deny?
Cody's here.
Motion to deny?
Second.
All in favor of the motion of denial?
Aye.
I,
Opposed?
That would be on
The ayes
non-appearance.
have it.
based on
Non-appearance.
appearance.
And record.
42, new Class D operator bartender application for Stephen Reese, first appearance.
Motion to hold? Was
Second.
there a call from, okay.
So
We'll
we
offer, yeah, Mr. Perry's grace for the one
So this
non-appearance.
is a motion to hold.
Yep, second.
That's
All in
first
favor of the
appearance
motion?
only.
Aye.
Opposed? The aye. Then we have item 43, new Class D operator bartender application for Alicia Murkiski, first appearance. I'm sure she's here.
No, motion to hold?
Second.
I mean, I thought technology today would be more effective, you know, with emails, letters sent to the
These
mail.
are obviously people who don't want to really have a bartender's
Well,
license.
then why they waste our time, really?
Mr. Chair,
Exactly.
if I may,
Yes.
it's just an offered grace,
Yes.
so things do come up.
Okay, all right. So then we move on to item 4.4, new Class D operator bartender application for Elizabeth Rita, first appearance.
Bingo.
Oh, she is.
We have one, come on up.
She waited for an hour over here.
I felt like the game show host, come on down.
For an hour, maybe that poor girl wait, you know?
How are you?
So based on what I see, really, I don't see much, really, anything in records that will affect her license.
Well, with that being said, Elizabeth is appearing as a new Class D operator. This is, I'm going to check your file real quick. I'm so sorry. I should have had that up and going already.
Right here.
Right here.
I got it.
You've got it? Super, thank you. I think I had one question for you, but I didn't have my notes available, so my apologies.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
are you finished? Oh, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
you go right ahead.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I'm
I was
going over
concerned
something.
about the accident, 2019 property damage. Could you elaborate a little bit on that, please?
Property damage?
It says
Mention
accident with property damage.
Oh, I think that was a company car. I don't, property damage, wasn't even, just says property damage, 2019.
It says accident with property
Property
damage.
damage?
So did you have an accident?
I did, yeah, is property damage just another car? Yeah.
It could be a car, it
Okay,
could be,
yeah,
yeah.
I think, yeah, I just paid out another car, yeah.
But really, based on.
I mean, there
the-
was,
Go ahead, go ahead.
probably unintended driving. I have a clean record driving for the past 2 years,
Okay.
yeah.
You know, first of all, really, that accident that really did occur really is not related to our application for the be a bartender. And also, I mean, it's been in 2019, and besides, she has a really smooth and nice, clean record. So, on the motion,
A motion to approve.
Second.
all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? The aye have it.
Just don't speed to work.
We're good? I brought all this paperwork. Okay.
Lighten up on your foot.
Then we move on. to
You all good?
item
Thank you.
45.
Thank you.
Communication from the Health Commissioner regarding the nuisance abatement program action plan progress. Bob, I think everything is going smooth, right?
So you should have in your file an update. So this is a year-to-date progress report that really speaks to the nuisance abatement plan on the whole. And then actually in the report, you will see various indications of kind of where we had improvements or changes since the September report that I shared with you, or we shared with you folks. So all in all, you'll see that really, I think in the course of this year, the nuisance abatement project and plan went down, I think, really well. You know, it was, I think, a really good collaborative effort between the departments. I think the report itself will demonstrate, in large part, that the primary organizations that include Health Department, DPW, and code enforcement, and as well administration and legal, have all routinely been coming together throughout the course of this year to talk about the scope of work that was needed to put forth communication, as well as get abatement out, and also just to work on things like the OpenGov platform that is really turning out to be a wonderful tool for us as departments to better collaborate. And so without getting into the full details of all of the narrative, really with regard to OpenGov and the Let Us Help function, that has really prompted good communication between the various departments as we are getting complaints, and then also then when various departments are going out into the field to do inspections, we're notifying one another of not only when there is a presence of rodents, but as well harborage issues. There's also then action behind those. And so, so really, with, I think, the folks who are here, Dan in particular with code enforcement, and Dave with regard to the public works side of things, can really kind of speak, I think, as well to the benefits of having that electronic platform work to our advantage. Communication-wise, you can see that we have pushed out many social media posts, as well as other forms of communication to residents, and we saw a number of hits, either through the health department social media posts, as well as the city Facebook posts, to the tune of over 100,000 hits. Now, keep in mind, there's going to be some redundancy, duplication there, but all in all, I think we had a pretty good outreach effort with regard to reaching the masses, raising awareness, and hopefully getting some folks to change their behaviors. So getting into a little bit, I would say, the meat and potatoes of the plan itself, the nuisance abatement and mitigation plan and metrics. As a reminder, this year we did a very thorough walkthrough in 3 zones. 580 properties fell under the umbrella of those walkthroughs. On August 25th, which is relevant to Zone 1, there were approximately 40 orders to abate based on the violations that were identified during that walkthrough. Dropping down a little bit, you can see towards the middle of the page with regard to notices of violation, in large part because we as a health department were actually successful in putting together the process by which we use Let Us Help to push out letters. We were able to, as part of that process, issue 13 notices of violation in a 2-month period between October and November of this year. You'll see that 1 licensed restaurant was ordered by us to cease operations, in large part because of rat activity. Fortunately, that particular business was very compliant and cooperative during the course of their closure. And so during that closure, there were repeated visits, re-inspections, to the point where We cleared them for reopening after they essentially told us that they were pest-free. In the course of this year, one residential property received a cease and desist order for feeding of the birds. This is a residence that's just been I would say a repeat customer of sorts throughout the year, and so we essentially engaged the legal process to issue a cease and desist. This residents and those individuals were put through a court system, or through the court process. As you can see that, through that process, they were issued over $6,000 in fines. And again, this is over a period of time. And then too, as a result of that particular effort, in large part because, as we all talked about numerous times, it's not just one property, it's going to be multiple properties. We actually had to issue a cease and desist order to many properties on that particular street to have them stop feeding the birds. So that happened towards mid-year, and so areas where we got somewhat aggressive and taking more of an enforcement approach. As you can see too, a number of bait stations were placed throughout the various 3 zones in the city, or otherwise known as the hotspots. Recent numbers to that situation, as you might recall, we were awarded or allowed to use up to $10,000 in CDBG funds, and to date we have essentially reimbursed Orkin for their services just shy of $10,000. So being very aggressive with that activity. And then just dropping down towards the end here on the 3rd page, DPW added 7 additional bait stations at Liberty Heights. There are now a total of 10 bait stations there. And monitoring has been increased from bi-weekly to weekly at Liberty Heights. And then a report from code enforcement. Dan, I don't know if you want to kind of chime in on the numbers that were shared. But as you can see, they've been very busy with their tall grass and weeds inspections over this past year. A number of orders were issued, and I think with regard to the rat rodent issue, you can see that approximately 195 letters regarding rodent harborage were issued, which reflects plus 70 letters since the last report. They've issued 9 citations, and they are actively managing 27 nuisance properties in the city, all of which are part of the big issue of harborage and rodent traffic, and so all in all, I would say a very productive year. Things have quieted down this last quarter, we suspect because of the weather. We're going to take the winter months to reassess kind of where we landed over the course of these past many months, look at any kind of quality improvement opportunities, and ramp things back up for the spring. As we know, the little critters are going to get busy again. And so unfortunately, we know this problem is not going to necessarily go away, but we're hoping that we at least mitigated things enough this year where we're going to be able to better control the situation next year.
Any question for
Mr. Chair.
committee members? Yes.
Bob, in your opening, you said there was 13 notices of violation and the restaurant complied, right? So they're in compliance now?
Correct. Yep.
What are the others? Are they not in compliance yet? The other 12, I guess, would be?
Well, the one restaurant.
And maybe I missed it, my apologies.
Yeah, so the restaurant is a separate
Okay.
matter. Yeah. And then right now, the other issues or notices of violation are being monitored. So no citations have been issued to them at this point. And because there are violations, our team is monitoring the progress towards.
Mine being monitored.
Well, staff will go out routinely, and they'll just either go on site to look at that property, or they will essentially just call that property owner just to see how things are progressing.
Thank you.
Do you
Any
have many
further question?
properties that basically you have to repeat?
I'm sorry.
Do you have many properties that you have to repeat?
Well, there are a few suspect, properties where we spend a little bit more time there than other properties. And I would say the one residence that was issued the cease and desist is a prime example of that. And then, all in all, it's a manageable situation. But yeah, there are folks out there who, they just don't get it. If they're issued a violation and don't take care of it, then we're now ramping up and in a better position now to issue citations, at least through the health department. DPW and code enforcement, with regard to the enforcement activities that they have, under their purview, certainly as well have the ability to issue citations. If it's a harborage kind of situation, or if it's a nuisance property, or two, with regard to the garbage, if they find that the garbage is not being maintained, then as it's indicated here, then yeah, they've been writing some citations as well.
Bob, I do believe your health department really have done hell of a good job, really, in relations of, in concurrence with the code enforcement, with Dan and the building inspection and public works as well, because really, the East End, in the last couple of years, I did experience, I used to receive a lot of calls, really, in regard rodents, and rats. When somebody called me by Liberty Heights, he says, the rats are crawling all over the kitchen. I said, how in the world, can you live like that, you got rats crawling all over. Don't you do anything about it? I would take a sledgehammer and try to go after them, really. To me, it would be the answer, really. But not just let it go like that, So there's many cases like that, really, within our community. And also the East End, has been having a little more problems,
Mr. Chair?
Is that true, Dan?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, yeah, so we've been working, with OpenGov, with Kevin Smith and Sarah
Yeah.
at DPW, we can see what everyone's doing behind the scenes, where before it was all separate platforms, so we're working together with them way more than we ever have in the past, and same thing with sending out, pamphlets for the health department in our letters when there's weeds around garages or junk in the yard, just letting them know, you're contributing to rodents, so, yeah, that's
Thank
been
you, guys.
helping a lot.
Dan, the fact is, that's what it take in any department's communications and try to work together. But in the past, years back, I never could digest that. But now today, I think we have a hell of good people in our staff, really. Within every department, there's good people. Go ahead, any question from the committee members?
No, actually, you
I
summed it
move
up.
to place
So-
on file.
Second?
Yeah, all in favor of place on file?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The aye. have it.
Motion to adjourn.
Thanks, Bob.
Second.
All in favor of the adjournment?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The aye have it. Thank you.
Vitale.
Here.
Weigel.
Here.
Grisham.
Here.
Haas.
Here.
Keen. Here. Lysick.
Here.
Ranky.
Here.
Rote.
Here.
9 present.
We have a quorum. We will begin with the Administration and Finance Committee.
The Administration and Finance Committee recommended adoption of item number 32.
And Ms. Grill, we took action on items 33 and 34 also, even though it
I'm
does
sorry.
say refer to the city attorney. We followed the city attorney's recommendation on those 2 items. So we approved items 32, 33, and 34.
Okay. Apologize.
And so, Mayor Devine, I move for approval of the committee report.
All right, thank you, Alderman Haas. Any discussion? Hearing none, I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Alderperson Stefanski.
Aye.
Vitale.
Aye.
Weigel.
Aye.
Grisham.
Aye.
Haas.
Aye.
Keen. Lysick.
Aye.
Ranky.
Aye.
Rote.
Aye.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next up, we will go to the Public Works Committee report.
The Public Works Committee recommended passage of item 35 and adoption of items 36 through 38.
I move in accordance of the committee report, Mayor Devine.
Thank you, Alderman Road. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Alderperson Stefanski.
Aye.
Vitale.
Aye.
Weigel.
Aye.
Grisham.
Aye.
Haas.
Aye.
Keen. Lysick.
Aye.
Ranky.
Aye.
Rote.
Aye.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. And then we have the Safety and Development Committee.
The Safety and Development Committee recommended adoption of item number 39.
Mayor Devine, I move for approval of the committee report.
Thank you. Any discussion? If there's none, I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Alderperson Stefanski.
Aye.
Vitale.
Aye.
Weigel.
Aye.
Grisham.
Aye.
Haas.
Aye.
Keen. Lysick.
Aye.
Ranky.
Aye.
Rote.
No.
8 in favor, 1 opposed.
Motion carries. And we next have the License and Health Committee.
The License and Health Committee recommended denial of items 40 and 41 for non-appearance and their police record, hold items 42 and 43, grant item 44, and place on file number 45.
Mr. Mayor, I move for approval based on the License and Health Committee report.
Thank you, Alderman Vitale. If there is no discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Mayor Devine,
Alderman Lysick.
since it's our last meeting of the year, I wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a happy holiday season. I move that we adjourn until our next regularly scheduled meeting, Tuesday, January 10th, 2023.
There is a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.
Okay.